convinced that your wife wanted to murder your son. This is in character, is it, with your nearest and dearest, with whom, until only a year or so ago, you were like lovebirds?
Well, it's not up to me to say what she's charged with.
Maybe not, but it's your evidence that could convict her of it. Have you thought about that?
Of course I've bloody thought about it. It's my wife. It's just that, like I said before, it's for the kids, for Pete, his safety.
Mr. Smithson, you may be a confectioner's salesman, but kindly don't dispose of your products whilst giving evidence in this court.
I'm sorry, Your Worship.
Very well. Now, Mr. Lotterby.
I'm sure we can all appreciate your anxiety in this situation, Mr. Smithson. So, now then, you're telling us that your prime concern in all of this is for your baby son, Peter. Your wife, you say, has a down on him. She picks on him.
That's right.
Did you not, at times, accuse her of trying to get at you through the child?
Well,
Oh, wasn't this the favourite theme of yours in the rows you're always having?
well, so what? It was true.
This was why she picked on him, as a means of getting at you?
Sometimes
She knew you cared for him because he was a boy, your only son and heir, so she used him as a weapon against you?
Right. Well, since you bring it up, right.
Nasty.
Aye. And do you know what else she used to say? Well, I'll tell you. We must be firm, she'd say. No spoiling. No spoiling, else he'll grow up like his dad. As if I was some sort of lower animal life. And that's how she used to go on.
Smithson!
I'm sorry, sir.
Kindly hand those sweets to the usher.
Your wife's sister in Perth. Now, she was deserted by her husband some years ago, was she not?
Yes.
Deserted with 4 children to support and no home of her own.
So?
Well, isn't it true that because of this, your wife harbours acute fears of desertion? Yes, and isn't it also true that at times you have taunted her with this threat?
No.
And you, in fact, told her to expect you home from the sales trip on the evening of the 2nd?
Well, I were held up.
Really? Well, I put it to you, sir, that you were not held up, that you never expected to return home before the 4th, but you told her the 2nd so as to provoke her anxiety, to aggravate her fears of desertion.
No, it's not true.
Did you make any attempt to contact her to explain?
But we're not on the phone.
Telegram?
But she knew. She knew I might get held up.
So you say.
I do.
I see. Well, it does seem that a rather different image is beginning to emerge, wouldn't you say? Not so much lovebirds as adversaries locked in a war of attrition. A war which culminated in the tragic accident on the stairs.
You what?
Do you deny the moment you came home that evening and heard what had happened, you saw it as the perfect chance of defeating your wife once and for all?
My lord, I protest this steamrolling tactic. Could my witness at least be allowed the opportunity to answer for himself?
But don't steamroll, Mr. Lotterby.
My lord, do you in fact have any answers to give us, Mr. Smithson?
Aye, it's a lot of bloody nonsense.
Ah!
And let us guard our language.
Now let's see if we can find any more illustrations of battle, shall we? Yes, now at the committal proceedings, did you hear your wife plead not to be kept in custody? Was she not desperately anxious about the little girls? And did you not hear the chairman of the bench indicate that he might release her on bail? And didn't the police say they had no objection to this? Well, Mr. Smithson. And yet no one could be found to stand surety for her, could they? No one. Not her parents, they're dead. Not her sister, she's destitute. Her mother-in-law, maybe. Her husband.
She'd have killed Kid. We couldn't trust her.
The kid was away in hospital, and as for the 2 little girls, you've already said she was all right with them.
Well, she'd flipped. She'd done it once. We couldn't trust her.
I see. And is this why you've not once taken the little girls to see her? Not once.
How could we? In prison? Their mother in prison? Sick. That's what we had to tell them. Your mam's ill with an infectious disease.
Ill is precisely what she's become. fancy you're depriving her of all sight and sound of her children for the last 6 weeks, as I fancy the jury can see for themselves. But this is a war you've been fighting, isn't it, Mr. Smithson? A bitter, vicious, vindictive little war. I have no further questions.
You may stand down. You are released, so you may stay for the rest of the proceedings or depart as you wish.
Thank you, sir.
I call Violet Ann Smithson, my lord.
Yes.
Violet Ann Smithson, please. You come this way.
And when you arrived in the flat that evening, what happened?
Well, that's her there, Sheena. She wouldn't let me in. She had door on chain.
Were you able to persuade her to open up?
No, you couldn't reason with her. All she would say was as how little Petey had been hurt. So I said I'd go for doctor, but she said no, get ambulance. So I went down to the box on the corner and I telephoned the hospital and then I come back up again and I tried to get in, but she kept me waiting outside until the ambulance men came.
You must have found this rather odd under the circumstances.
Well, no, not exactly.
Oh?
Well, you see, I could see the signs. I could tell.
Now, did she eventually open up the door for the ambulance men?
Why?
And what did you see inside the flat, Mrs. Smithson?
Well, my first thoughts were for little Petey. And she had him lying on the settee, all pale and cold. Dead, I thought. She's gone and done for him this time.
But how would you describe the inside of the flat?
Oh, it were in a terrible mess. The kitchen were worse. There were water everywhere and dirty washing line all around.
And was this usual?
Oh, no. No, all right fussy she is. Close the door, no smoking, don't touch that, don't move that. Not that I'm faulting her for that. Oh, no. If she likes to live in a chapel, well, that's her lookout. But it's not my idea of an home.
Now, your daughter-in-law, Mrs. Smithson, how would you describe her condition?
She'd gone, well, all sort of quiet-like. Dazed, almost. Honest, you know, I don't think she'd know what she'd done. It's these moods of hers. It's like a disease.
Now, I think it's right that you then all went to the hospital.
That's right.
Now, why did you all go?
Well, so that I could take little Jean and Fiona back home with me afterwards. But, oh, no, I wasn't good enough, was I? The Grand's not to be trusted. The Grand might let him stay up late watching telly or something wicked like that. Oh, not that I fault her for that, though. It's the way she's been brought up. Oh, the airs they give her. And there was another reason why she didn't want me alone with them. That evening, she was afraid. She was afraid of what Fiona might tell me.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith.
All the way in the ambulance, she never took her eyes off that child. And when we got to the hospital, she made quite sure that I didn't get no time alone with her.
I see.
And you see why, don't you? You've only got to ask Fiona what went on in that flat that night. How the mother were laying into that poor little boy. Laying into the
Members of the
further
jury,
questions.
you will kindly ignore the witness's last statement.
Mrs. Smithson, your daughter-in-law doesn't trust you, says you spoil the children.
The only time I get to see them is when our Jack's home at weekends.
There is, in fact, considerable ill-feeling between you, is there?
I've tried to help her, especially since Petey were born. Oh, he were a difficult child.
But she rejects your help, does she?
Oh, she'd rather go outside. Oh, she'd rather go to welfare than turn to me.
And you feel she puts on airs?
She's brought it on herself. She's got no friends. She don't know anybody in the street. Far too good for them. She's too grand.
But she does have the welfare authorities in.
Oh, yes, that Miss James. University. She'd have her into tea, but as for asking family in... Oh.
So it's not unusual for her to greet you with the chain on the door?
Regular.
So, in fact, her behaviour on the evening of the 3rd was not inconsistent with what you would normally expect?
Aye. And as I told you, I could see the signs.
Her behaviour was perfectly normal, but you could see the signs? I see. Have you any other family apart from your son, Jack?
None.
Husband?
Gone this 25 year.
So you draw a widow's pension, and I believe you do occasional domestic work. Is that correct?
Aye, that's right. Except when my back's playing me up.
So you manage on your own. Your son, he doesn't have to support you.
Oh, no, to the way round, more like. What with the money she spends.
Oh, you regard your daughter-in-law as extravagant?
Oh, now, but best's good enough for her. It's a wonder how Jack's got output by.
You don't like your daughter-in-law too much, do you, Mrs. Smithson?
Well, like I said, it's the cook you've got to blame, not the pudding.
Ah, yes. Nevertheless, this particular pudding was not to your taste.
Well, now you mention it, no.
You've never got on, have you? Never accepted her?
I've tried.
Have you? I wonder. You see, I'm going to put it to you that you've never accepted her. You've always criticized and resented her at every turn. Her airs, as you call them, her background, her chapel, her high standards of childcare. You've criticized and fought her at every turn.
Why? I mean, why would I go on like that? No.
Oh, because, Mrs. Smithson, you're jealous of the girl who took your only son away from you.
My lord.
It's all right, miss, it's all right. Now, you listen. You don't know what I've gone through with that Sheena. You don't know what I've put up with her, the efforts I've made.
Do you deny it was you who persuaded your son to go to the police?
You what?
Do you deny you waited 2 hours outside their flat the following morning so as to catch him the moment he got home?
What if I did? If I did anything like that, it was for our Peter's sake. To protect him against her. Oh, it strikes me our Jack's much too loyal. Any other man would have divorced her by now, and now he will divorce her. And the tragedy is it's taken her half killing that poor little baby to show him for himself, to show her what she really is like.
And just what is she, madam? Your rival for his affections. No further questions.
Did you ever actually see the accused mistreat the little boy?
Well, it depends what you mean.
Yes or no, madam?
Not in anger.
Thank you. You may stand down. You may sit over there with your son if you wish to stay in for the rest of the proceedings.
I call Archibald Webster, my lord.
Yes.
Archibald Webster, please.
Director of Social Services in Fulchester.
I am.
Now, in May of this year, were you visited in your office by the accused in this case, Mrs. Sheena Smithson, with an appeal for help?
You could call it an appeal.
How would you normally respond when young mothers come to you saying they can't cope?
Normally, we'd have to refer them to the infants' clinic, see if they couldn't get a health visitor or home help of some kind.
Your staff are highly qualified in infant care.
The ones we've got are, but we're desperately short of people.
And nevertheless, in this case, you did respond, and you assigned a fully qualified social worker to a series of home visits.
Yes.
Would you tell the court why?
It was the way that Mrs. Smithson phrased her appeal.
What way was that?
She said that she couldn't cope, that the little boy was an extremely difficult child, and that if she didn't get help, she couldn't be held responsible for what she might do to him.
She couldn't be held responsible for what she might do to him. Now, was this phrased as a threat?
No. You see, she was in quite a state about it. She said that she was terrified of what she might do to him. And then, when I asked her why, she said...
Yes, what did she say?
Well, that a couple of times already she'd lost all self-control with the child, and that next time it could be disastrous. She could do him some permanent injury.
The case of the Queen against Smithson will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.